Part-2, Chapter-2. And so, on October 12, 1986, Vijay Dashami, the anniversary of Lord Ram's defeat of the demon Ravana, AINDRA reinitiated Krishna Balaram Mandir's 24-hour kirtan. He was determined not only to get the 24-hour kirtan going again, but also to make it last. He felt that there were 3 reasons why previous attempts had been short-lived. Devotees had not been assigned full time, the schedules had not been maintainable, and the kirtans had not been integrated into the temple culture. So he established a core of a half a dozen or so devotees for whom the kirtan was their main service, though early on, especially during the hot summers and cold winters, when there were fewer temple devotees, they also distributed books, helped on the altar, and worked for the deity department. The first devotee to participate was Gopinath, having overcome objections from his guru, who had not wanted him to, quote, become a Babaji, just chanting in Vrindavan. Over the following years, a few dozen young men joined, at least for a time. Among the early members, almost all Indian, were Jagadish, Avani from North India, Devaki Nandan from West Bengal, who, like several devotees, had joined in Mayapur but migrated to Vrindavan. Nandanandana, who had been living in Gaudiya Math temples for over a decade. Ananda Chaitanya, a young Nepali recently graduated from the Gurukul, and Shodhan Krishna, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, Ban Maharaj. One evening, a devotee named Achyutadas approached AINDRA after his kirtan. Quote, I was studying architecture in a university in New York, Achyuta said, and I saw your kirtan truck on the sidewalk. I thought to myself, wow, mobile motif architecture. I was so impressed that I stuck around to hear the kirtan and found out about the Sunday feast at the Brooklyn Temple. I went to the temple that Sunday, but you had already left and come here. The other day, I told someone my story, and they said it was your truck, so I wanted to introduce myself and say thank you. I'm living here in Vrindavan now. I'm an architect, and they want me to stay and help complete Prabhupada's Samadhi. Well, AINDRA considered, maybe I wasn't completely useless in New York after all. Most of these first devotees were trained in classical Bengali-style kirtan, but they were initially so few that AINDRA had to divide the day into 4-hour shifts, each party member, including AINDRA, manning 2 for a total of 8 hours, often alone. Further, the temple staffing was so tight that the kirtan devotees were regularly enlisted to serve on the altar and in other aspects of deity worship. Gopinath, for instance, would do his shift, take a shower, and change into clean cloth, cook and offer bhoga to the deities, offer them arti, honor a little mahaprasadam, and then take another 4-hour shift. Eventually, when Srila Prabhupada's letters, lectures, and conversations became available online, and AINDRA learned more about Prabhupada's instructions for organizing a 24-hour kirtan, he formed 8 3-hour shifts manned by 3 teams, each devotee participating in 2 shifts for 6 hours of devotional service. The ideal was that each team would comprise at least 3 devotees, 1 to lead the chanting and play harmonium, 1 on mridanga, and the 3rd on kartals. If only 1 man was available, he would accompany himself on mridanga. If there were 2, 1 could play mridanga, the other kartals. Again, following Prabhupada's instructions, they would sing only the Mahamantra, no other prayers or bhajans. Quote, I want people all over the world to understand the power of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, AINDRA said. The Mahamantra embodied the divine lover's dramatic drama. Quote, "The resplendent personality of the holy name of Radha, Hare, compassionately folds me into her bosom, besprinkling the kumkum from her breasts unto the lotus of my heart, to gracefully confer upon this aspiring maidservant the adhikar to passionately kiss, embrace, and intimately satisfy the holy name of her all-enchanting lover, Lord Gopi Priya, Krishna. Thus, under her auspices and for her absolute pleasure, I enthusiastically sing the thunderous Sankirtan of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." Quote, "I always emphasize the importance of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra," he later shared. Although Prabhupada said that the 6 Goswamis' songs are the extensions of the Mahamantra, still more important than all of them is the Mukhya Mantra, the chief mantra. So many times devotees become sidetracked because of their lack of taste for chanting the Mahamantra due to not chanting enough. They are thinking that the kirtan is boring if you don't switch to Govinda Jaya Jaya or Radhe Radhe or whatever Jaya Jaya Jaya. Undoubtedly, Srila Prabhupada's instruction is that the main focus of the kirtan should be the Mahamantra. Here in Vrindavan, for the 24-hour kirtan, we chant the Mahamantra exclusively. That is the main and best Sankirtan mantra for our age. He recounted how Prabhupada in Vrindavan had responded when he had been asked what could be sung in kirtans. Quote, "Is it okay to sing Hari Bol?" the devotees asked, or Nitai Gaur Hari Bol? Prabhupada said, "Mostly chant Hare Krishna." "Is it okay to sing the songs of the predecessor acharyas?" Prabhupada said, "Yes, but mostly chant Hare Krishna." "Is it okay to chant Jaya Radhe?" Prabhupada said, "Yes, but mostly chant Hare Krishna." At least 5 or 6 different things were asked, and Prabhupada kept saying, "Yes, but mostly chant Hare Krishna." Every time he was bringing it back, mostly chant Hare Krishna, mostly chant Hare Krishna, mostly chant Hare Krishna. So it is obvious that what Prabhupada was trying to say was, mostly chant Hare Krishna. Only on Radhastami would Aindra make an exception and sing to glorify Srimati Radharani. In reference to other songs or combined mantra forms that Prabhupada had not introduced, Aindra was unequivocal. Quote, "Prabhupada was not interested in allowing such mantras or such concocted form of mantras to be chanted." And he was firm in his insistence that both the mantra and instrument policies be followed, checking the temple room at random times to see how everything was going. When he heard a team member playing harmonium on a solo shift one night, he went down and asked the devotee to play mridanga instead. "But it's my harmonium," the devotee retorted. "I'll play it if I want to." Aindra just picked up the harmonium and threw it into the courtyard, where it broke into pieces on the marble floor. With 3-man teams, the kirtans could always have harmonium, mridanga, and kartals. But for that to be constant, Aindra needed 9 men, including himself. He had only 7. Sometimes, especially in the hot summers, only 5 or 6. It was suggested that musicians from outside the temple could make up the difference, but when he tried to include local professionals, he found that most would sing for a while, flaunt their skills, and then ask, "So, how do you like me?" and haggle for compensation. "How much are you paying? Why so little? Pagal Baba pays more." The experiment lasted less than a month. One of the next devotees to join was Nitai Das, who had met the devotees near the end of a Kumbh Mela in Nashik, in his native state of Maharashtra. He had been with a group of family and friends from his village, but had been so attracted to Krishna consciousness that he joined the devotees on the spot, and when they left, had gotten on the bus with them back to Bombay, where he'd been engaged in service by the movement's publishing division, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, BBT. One morning, Ayendra heard a sweet, beautiful voice leading the Guru Puja Kirtan. Nitai, he learned, had given up a career as a professional singer to become a devotee and was visiting Vrindavan on BBT business. It didn't take long to convince Nitai to move to Vrindavan full-time, and Ayendra paired him up with Devaki Nandan. In kirtan, he would sit behind the harmonium in total absorption, his eyes closed, oblivious to what was going on around him. Sometimes he would man the late shift by himself. One night, still in discussion upstairs in his room, Ayendra heard the faint sound of kirtan, Nitai's voice accompanied by harmonium, mridanga, and kartals. But something seemed different. Then it occurred to him, wasn't Nitai on the shift alone? Down in the temple room, he found Nitai sitting like a one-man orchestra, his left hand playing the big head of a mridanga, the strap of which was rigged so he could pump the harmonium bellows by rocking back and forth, his ankles wrapped in bells, which he played by tapping his feet, and his right hand on the strings of a tambura. Rooms 89 and 90 on the third floor of the Gurukul building became the 24-hour kirtan ashram. Each department had to be self-supporting. At first, the temple authorities wouldn't even pay for a mridanga, but the kirtan party didn't have enough funds to pay the rent, so Ayendra had to find ways for the kirtan party members to make themselves useful. They might not earn money, but they could serve on the altar, do building improvement and repair, and clean bathrooms. Ayendra's goal for the kirtan party's members was not just to train musicians. He wanted to develop a core of solid brahmacharis. Quote, "We're not doing Harinam Sankirtan because we're musicians," he told them. "We're doing Harinam Sankirtan because it's the Yuga Dharma. And anyway," he said, "we can never be proud that we're good musicians. Compared to the best musicians in this world, we're nothing. And the best musicians in this world are nothing compared to the musicians in the heavenly planets. And the best musicians in the heavenly planets are nothing compared to Lord Shiva. And the best musicians of all are the gopis of Vrindavan. So we can never be proud." Quote, "You've learned how to sing very expertly," he told one popular, accomplished classical Indian singer. "Now you should learn to sing with devotion." To join the party, a candidate should at least be able to play kartals and follow a basic rhythm, and he must be willing to work, to put in the effort. Quote, "In this age you will not get anything without Nam Sankirtan," he told one new devotee, "and not just a little lip service to Nam Sankirtan, half hour here and half hour there, but sitting down for hours and hours and hours for kirtan together as a practice of bhajan." But the bottom line was one's devotion. Purity, he said, is the main thing. Musical style is secondary. If one's heart is steel-framed, he quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam, then, quote, "in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, it does not change when ecstasy takes place. Tears fill the eyes, and the hairs stand on end." If hearing and chanting are properly performed, he read from the purport, there will follow the reactional ecstasy with signs of tears in the eyes and standing of the hairs on the body. These are natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the bhava stage, which occurs before one reaches the perfectional stage of prema, love of Godhead. If the reaction does not take place, even after continuous hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord, it may be considered to be due to offenses only. So why do we have to remain as an offender? He asked. We cannot claim that we have actual attachment to the holy name of Krishna, which is not different from Krishna, if we're not beginning to manifest direct, reactional, ecstatic emotions in relationship on the basis of that attachment. The attachment is not at a standstill, it is something which naturally flows and brings one to the ecstatic position. If we actually have attachment to chanting of the holy name, there must naturally be a softening of the heart as a consequence of that attachment to Krishna. The attachment to Krishna is what causes vipralambha. That is what causes the preliminary anxiety for meeting with Krishna, for being with Krishna. And due to that attachment, if we're actually attached to Krishna, the personality, then when we chant his name, that name makes us think of Krishna, the personality that we're attached to. Because the name is non-different from Krishna, our attachment to the name should be as much as what we're attached to Krishna, the person. We should be attached to the name in Shantaras, in Sakyaras, or Dasyaras, or Vatsalyaras, or Madhuryaras, in the same ras that we're attached to. Even if it's in the aspiring stage, that same ras will be seen in our relationship with the chanting of the holy name and the feelings toward the object of our rasa or the subject of our rasa, meaning to say, Krishna is the subject. Our feelings that we will have toward Krishna based on our attachment to Krishna in various ways will be the object of his pleasure. To see Krishna's name or hear Krishna's name, to think of Krishna's name automatically necessitates our thinking of the person, and it should manifest as a particular kind of attachment which is growing in our heart to that person, which should manifest as feelings of separation from Krishna, which is preliminary manifest as the anxiety or the anticipation of meeting Krishna, of gaining his association, gaining his company, and not feeling happy without it, which should bring a certain degree of intensity of desires within the heart, which will cause us to naturally cry for his association. That should be coming in our chanting as a result of properly hearing and chanting the holy names. If it's not coming, then it should be understood that we ourselves are not properly hearing and chanting the holy name. And it must be due to some impropriety in our attachment, in the attachment of our mind, in the attachment of our heart, that we're maintaining material attachments somehow or other, subtly or grossly, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter, which is the basic, let's say, bottom line in offensive chanting. When there's attachment to the principle of ahaituki bhakti, to the extent that we don't mind whether we have to again and again and again take birth, we don't care for mukti, we don't care for moksha. We're interested only that we should again and again and again relish the practice of pure devotional service. That comes after there's the constant chanting, proper constant chanting of the holy name. But mind you, it is symptomatic of the proper constant chanting of the holy name, affected by accepting the humble attitude, being tolerant, giving respect to others without expecting any respect for ourselves, which is the basis for offenseless chanting. The symptom is that within our heart we will not desire any such things as dhanam, wealth, or janam, followers, people, or this sundarim, adoration, people applauding us for our deeds in devotional service. We don't want profit, dhanam. We don't want distinction, janam. And we don't want adoration, sundarim. Nor do we want moksha. We want prema, he said. And the basis of the cultivation of prema is ahaituki bhakti. So by ahaituki bhakti bhajan, it's expected that we should be developing some attachment to the subject of that bhajan, namely Krishna. From ruchi comes asakti, and asakti is the preliminary stage of bhava. It is the basis of bhava, and all this is taken in terms of proportionate degrees. When there's a proportionate degree of freedom from anarthas, of which offenses against the holy name are one type, to that degree we will become steady in our devotional practices. To the degree that we're steady in devotional practices, to that degree we will be developing something, taste. We're virtually living in a realm of ever-increasing simultaneous hopelessness and hopefulness. Our hopefulness is based on expectation of Krishna's mercy, and our hopelessness is based on the realization of the futility of our efforts to express our attachment to Krishna, because there's virtually very little attachment. Therefore, crying because we can't cry based on attachment. If we can't cry for Krishna when we're chanting the holy name, if no tears come to our eyes, then we should at least be crying because we can't cry, realized by our decrepit, destitute, downtrodden position. And those tears of crying because we can't cry, or our crying because we can't cry because we can't cry, those tears will melt away the hard-coredness of our heart, and those tears will be the beginning of our actual crying for Krishna. Along with following Srila Prabhupada's instructions to chant exclusively the Mahamantra, Aindra also mandated that the 24-hour party satisfy His Divine Grace's desire that the kirtan be continuous, akhanda, without interruption. The kirtan devotees had to be punctual and remain for their entire shift. Quote, he was emphatic, one remembered, sometimes shouting at the top of his lungs that we should be doing kirtan, ahaituki, apratiyata, akhandanam, unmotivated, uninterrupted, and unbroken. An uninterrupted devotional service meant that when we sat down to do kirtan, we shouldn't get up for any reason whatsoever. We should stay for the entire duration of the shift. They should visit the bathroom beforehand, bring drinking water, and request someone else to save prasadam for them. And no chatting or speaking on cell phones. Even when one devotee complained that he had a cold and couldn't sit on the marble temple room floor during the chilly winter night, Aindra told him to bring a blanket or even a sleeping bag, but not to ever neglect his duty or stop the kirtan. Why akhandanam, 24-hour kirtan? Aindra asked. Because people are forced to become pious by even entering into an atmosphere where a kirtan had been performed, as the ethereal atmosphere still remains purifying. So how much more one is forced to become pious when one walks into a place where the kirtan performance is going on and one hears the holy name. And how much even more purifying is the place where the holy name is being heard 24 hours a day, non-stop. When you chant non-stop in a place, the power of that place simply increases, increases, and increases. But when the kirtan breaks, it loses power. The Akhanda Kirtan also forces people to surrender more because they can't just start talking about something or even stop to eat. One has to sacrifice. There is also a greater degree of responsibility toward the other members of the team as they are working very hard to keep Harinam continuously manifest in the atmosphere. If you are doing Akhandanam Kirtan for years and years, the atmosphere that has been generated by the continuous manifestation of Nam becomes so powerful that it not only purifies one from material contamination, but purifies the egoism of the soul, bringing the soul to its original egoism, the mood of a resident of Vrindavan. Kirtan was a serious yajna, he stated. One should do it with full heart, with full energy, body, mind, heart, everything into it, and be there for the full duration. Quote, "I don't just want people to come here and do kirtan," he stated. "I actually need people to come here and help us maintain this Akhanda Nam. That's what I need here. That's what I want. We are doing this Akhanda Nam Yagya for Srila Prabhupada." For many years, he said, so many devotees have been making the effort to keep the Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanted in the temple room without any break for so long. And then some rascal comes along. It just takes one rascal and just carelessly breaks the Akhanda Nam and destroys all of that. Each member of the party had to be responsible and vigilant. Maintaining the Akhanda Kirtan was one of the reasons why Aindra insisted on keeping the 24-hour Kirtan department in the Gurukul building. The top floor rooms could get blazing hot in the summer, and sharing the building with almost 200 children was far from ideal, but he wanted to be within hearing distance of the temple room so that he could keep tabs on the Kirtan, that it would never stop. For the Kirtan to go on uninterruptedly for 24 hours a day, it had to continue even during other temple programs. If there was an activity, such as the morning Bhagavatam class, that the Kirtan would disrupt, the team members would chant quietly on their beads on one side of the temple, just behind Tulsi. Then, immediately after, they would resume. Initially, they did gentle kirtan during the 2 hours after Mangalarti when devotees chanted japa together in the temple room, but when that was seen as a distraction, Aindra settled for just a few minutes of kirtan right before the deity's darshan, understanding that the holy name was being chanted throughout. Chanting from the 4 a.m. shift was the first thing devotees heard each day as they assembled, and it helped establish the right spiritual atmosphere for the morning program. Aindra specified that the kirtan then should be sung in a sweet, gentle Mangalarti melody, even if the tempo sometimes upshifted toward the end. At first, he took the midnight to 4 shift himself, when in the solitude of the empty temple he could develop new tunes, work out beats, and chant without restriction. Eventually he settled into leading the early evening kirtan right before Gaur Arti, his regular slot. Another of the challenges devotees faced when they joined the kirtan party was Aindra's insistence that all the musicians chant while playing, which they weren't all accustomed to doing. Most of the drummers concentrated on their mridanga playing, some just on producing fancy beats. But Aindra was firm. Quote, "Your mridanga playing is 0 if you don't put a 1 before it," he said, "and that 1 is Krishna. That 1 is the Mahamantra." He would chastise any devotee who wasn't chanting, give him what one devotee called his, quote, "stare of death," or yell at him right in the middle of a kirtan, no matter how many people were listening. Quote, "Prabhupada said that the instruments should not be played in a way that one cannot sing along with them at the same time," he instructed. Sometimes devotees become so absorbed in trying to play their instruments in a complicated way that they can't chant while they play. That means they haven't learned to play them properly. If one is not competent, or if one did not learn properly, he may know how to play intricate beats on the mridanga, but not how to sing at the same time, which is 100 times the benefit of only hearing. So if one is playing the mridanga properly by following the kirtan leader and serving the holy name, and at the same time hearing, that's great. But higher than that, better than that, is being able to play the mridanga and sing at the same time, at least as much as possible. Sometimes when the kirtan gets very heavy and it's really taking off, the mridanga player may have to back out of chanting to execute the changes the kirtan leader is putting the kirtan through, but that should be the exception, not the rule. As a general rule, as much as possible, the mridanga players should also respond with chanting. As far as the kartal players are concerned, I have seen people playing the kartals, or playing the gong, or playing the wampers, or playing the shakers, or banging on instruments just for their own high, completely oblivious to the fact that they should be chanting. And honestly speaking, that just boils my blood. It was a little difficult in the beginning, one kirtan devotee remembered, because we were so used to just playing mridanga and not singing. You had to coordinate the mouth with the hands. The mouth is doing something and the hands are doing something else, and sometimes the mind is thinking of something else. So it was a lot to deal with. When one of the party members complained about it, however, Ayindra replied, "Just tighten your belt." Further, everyone in the kirtan had to follow the chanter's lead, mridanga first, then kartals. Quote, "If the kirtan leader is singing without playing an instrument," he said, "or if he's playing the harmonium, which is not a rhythmic instrument, then the mridanga player should be following, trying to tune in and pick up on where the kirtan leader wants to go with the kirtan. The idea is for the mridanga player to serve and enhance the mood of the kirtan leader. Then the kartals should follow the mridanga. The mridanga player should not be so self-centered that his mridanga playing becomes more important to him than the kirtan, forcing the kirtan leader to surrender to whatever he is doing. There is a need for cooperation among the various performers, and because there is a leader, the idea is to follow the leader. If you become a good follower, then you can become a good leader, because you'll know what is required in following. If there is a competent leader, then if someone endeavors to hear and pay attention to where the leader is at, trying to pick up on his bhava, he can develop his own leadership skills. He may have a different mood because every soul is different and is going to have some nuance of expression of his own unique mood. In other words, there was plenty of room for self-expression, innovation, and artistic finesse, for different styles and approaches. When there was a complaint from one of the kirtan devotees about how another was leading the pre-Mangalartik chanting, Ayindra said, "But he's doing it nicely." And when the devotee pointed out that Ayindra had always done it differently and that they had been doing it the same way for years, Ayindra told him, "Yeah, and the person that you remember leading the kirtan like that is telling you right now that I like the way he does it." Quote, "The cool thing," he said, "is to put your own spin on it." While their role in the kirtan was to follow the leader, the other musicians also had room for their own individuality. After all, he said, even though the kirtan leader is the leader, it is not his performance alone. It's not that Krishna is looking only at him. Sankirtan is a congregational effort. Everyone is in it together. Love is always a two-way street. In real kirtan, there is thus a give and take among the performers. Sometimes the mridanga player has a good idea, or the kartal player has a good idea, and if it is a good idea, the kirtan leader benefits by surrendering to what the mridanga player has to offer. There is natural reciprocation between good kirtan performers. That's called jamming. It's sharing inspiration with each other. That sharing brings the kirtan to another dimension of spontaneous dynamism, which increases the inspiration, enthusiasm, and appreciation of each other as cooperative constituents in Lord Chaitanya's Leela. Not all of Ayindra's accompanists could do it. Quote, "Some," he said, "are neither interested in nor capable of understanding my mood or musical preferences. They just can't pick up on what I am doing to effectively inspire and engage others." Everyone had to play along. Quote, "Play something," he shouted at one kirtan devotee who was only chanting. When, after searching for a pair of kartals, a gong, wampers, a shaker, anything, the devotee told Ayindra that he couldn't find one not being used, Ayindra said, "Then clap your hands." and with gestures, shouts, stares, and glances, he would lead the musicians as he sang and played, like a conductor directing his orchestra. Aindra's kirtans had an immediate effect on the entire temple. Quote, "It's hard to imagine now," remembered Burijan Prabhu, who had in 1987 established the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education, VIHE, to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's desire for an educational institute in Vrindavan and encourage deep, systematic Shastric study. But in the 80s, no one used to come to Krishna Balaram Mandir, not the Western devotees, not the Indian devotees. Even during Kartik, there was no one here except the devotees who lived here. The Damodar prayers would have maybe 20, 30 devotees. It was completely different. Attendance at the evening arti was particularly sparse, but when Aindra took over the lead, it almost immediately picked up. Word spread and more devotees and pilgrims began coming. Everywhere they went, book distributors would meet people who had been impressed by the Krishna Balaram Kirtan or who had heard about it from others. Quote, "The word in Delhi," one devotee remembered, was that you have to go to Angrezi Mandir, the English temple, for Sandhya Arti and hear this Western devotee chanting renditions of classical Indian ragas with which they were familiar and to which they could relate. Aindra's kirtan became a trademark for the temple. The temple was known for them, and Krishna Balaram was one of the only temples in Braja where kirtan went on continuously. And then Burijan continued, very much because of kirtans specifically, especially Aindra Prabhu's kirtans, the temple became famous throughout India. They were so powerful, and everyone would dance and chant, and it had such an extreme effect.